the Billfish Foundation, research, advocacy, and education. Many people know and love the Billfish Foundation. But do you know everything that they do for the fishermen, the fish, and the communities that depend on them? Stay posted to find out. What's up, you guys? Welcome to the Katie C. Sawyer podcast. I'm your host, Katie, and today I have the ultimate pleasure of sitting down with two of my favorites from the Billfish Foundation, Peter Chaibongsai and TJ Morrell. Now, you guys, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. I really appreciate your sit down and this chat we're about to have.
Honor to be here, Katie. Can't wait to talk about all things Billfish.
I would love to introduce you both separately, but for our listeners. Now, you guys, this episode, we're going to get into the nitty gritty about what the Billfish Foundation is and what they do for our offshore fish populations, as well as the communities that depend on them. But let's start. If we have any listeners here that aren't already familiar with the Billfish Foundation, can you guys give us a little bit of like your elevator pitch on what you guys are as an organization?
So for those of you who don't know about the Billfish Foundation, we were established in 1986 by a group of concerned citizens, anglers, and scientists who knew that there was a need to know more about these species, specifically marlin, sailfish, swordfish, and etc. More so, not only to learn more about the species themselves, but understanding that there are a lot of communities and industries that are dependent on those healthy fisheries. That healthy sport fishery, So our foundation is based off of understanding more of the species themselves by collecting hard science and data and utilizing that data to help influence policy and to make sure that we properly promote those industries and communities that are dependent on that fishery.
Awesome. Great elevator pitch. TJ, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think he captured it perfectly.
I think Peter, I don't think it's Peter's first time.
Yeah. I think, general just awareness of the need to collect, data, because that's really how changes are made when it comes to fisheries management. So, the more information that we have, the better suited we'll be able to actually make changes or at least get pointed in the right direction to be able to make those down the line.
I love that you said that, TJ. Oh, sorry, Peter, I interrupted you.
No, I'm sorry, Katie. I think just to augment that speech even more, there's something that TJ and I over the past several years have been really preaching, not only to the foundation, the people within the foundation internally, but externally as well, is the more data, the better, and the better data, the better management. So that's a really big thing for us, that we're trying to make sure that everything that we do not only has a purpose, but then has we have that opportunity to collect more information, more data that can be utilized for our industry and this fishery that we love so much.
Right. It's so hard, you guys, to collect data on offshore highly migratory species.
Yeah.
And the Billfish Foundation's at the forefront of helping represent our industry of sport fishermen. Now, let's do a little bit of an introduction of each of you. TJ, I'm going to start with you. You mentioned the importance of fisheries management. And can you tell us who you are, where you're from, what you studied, and what your professional background is?
Sure. So I came onto the Billfish Foundation in 2022. Originally, I was at NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, and I was there for just under a decade. Did a number of positions related to commercial fisheries, observer programs, logbook data, data analyzation. So I had a good background when dealing with the commercial side. And so when the opportunity to work at the Billfish Foundation came about, I thought that I had a unique ability to come in because we were so focused on collecting data to kind of help and make progress toward, like Peter mentioned, getting better data, but even on our end, making sure that the data that we have is of the highest quality so that we can then utilize it for that fisheries management aspect that we discussed.
That's cool. What did you study in university?
Undergrad, I actually did journalism, and then master's was marine and environmental science. The goal was to kind of originally get involved with, I guess, like Nat Geo type stuff, writing for marine science. But then the more I got into the research and the science aspect, the more I liked that. And with the Billfish Foundation, it's been uh, really refreshing because there's so many different aspects that I can involve myself in, whether I like it or not.
You're welcome.
So, you get the opportunity to, have that research, do the data aspect, get writing, and all the other just general nonprofit, day-to-day operational aspects. So it's been a fun ride so far, and a good chance to really, stretch out in so many different niches within the marine science world.
Well, I think it's super cool that you had this like original passion for educating the world on what's going on in the wild,
Yeah.
and that today you're here on the forefront after almost a decade working with NOAA, which you guys is the federally, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, TJ, but when it comes to regulatory, we know this from episodes in the past, you guys, but when it comes to the regulatory lingo, I get a little befuddled. But the NOAA is who manages our fisheries on a federal level.
Correct.
And I think that's awesome. All right, Peter, you take it. What is your professional background, your studies? How long have you been with TBF?
Sure. So I have been with TBF for over 18 years now. As of March is my 18th year. So I've been in this community for quite some time, which is actually shocking to really think about how long I've been with TBF and with this industry. But there's a reason why I really do love this industry. It's a community that is really tight knit and really loves what they do and incredibly passionate. But going back to your other question, so before that, I've been with them for 18 years, but before that I was in grad school at the University of Miami, the Rosenstiel School. I was doing marine affairs and policy. That's my background. Before that, I was doing aquaculture actually, overseas in Thailand, as well as I did outdoor ed for a couple of years, which I incredibly loved in my early 20s. That was super fun, being out in California and the Keys. And then before that, as an undergraduate, I also did marine science, but then I also was in elementary ed. So I can speak to a lot of people at many different levels, I feel like, and it worked out really well. That elementary teaching education has actually worked itself really well in this field.
I love that.
Yeah, it's great. It helps me relate to people actually a lot better and try to see their point of view. So
Super. Okay, cool. Well, so three main pillars of the Billfish Foundation are research, advocacy, and education. Now, you guys, with your introduction, it's clear that those are all three things that each of you are passionate about. But do you want to tell us a little bit about how these pillars are in your everyday life and how the Billfish Foundation and the work you do there reflects those?
Sure, TJ, do you want to take that, or do you want me to?
Yeah, well, we can do one at a time. So,
Sure.
starting with research. So Peter mentioned the first thing that we need to be able to do is to collect that data, as we said, and then with that data we can do the research to actually start to be able to make changes, see if there's trends in the populations, actually go out and do the science needed to be able to show if changes are required. And so it's such an integral part of what the Billfish Foundation does, and it may not sometimes be the flashiest aspect. A lot of it is behind the scenes, and it's stock assessments, and it's discussions with researchers, and it's cool when you have those opportunities to show the research, the actual trips out there, the being on the boat, enjoying it, and actually collecting it. But a majority of it is the behind the scenes stuff that is difficult but worth it to really show, when you can take all of these different items and put them together and have a final presentation. So this is the research, this is why we did it, how we funded it, who was involved, and you have a perfectly wrapped product to give to people in a layman's terms so that they can understand why we put so much effort into it and what we can hopefully do with it moving forward.
I was about to say, TJ, you basically went through all three right there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Well
you did
done.
a
Nailed
really
it.
good. Yeah, you did a really good job. I mean,
Air
just
five.
yeah, just to augment that argument a little bit. I mean, I think TJ did a really good job talking about the three pillars there. But yeah, utilizing our background and our love, our community's love of the offshore environment to help understand, these species. I mean, thinking about it this way, and I don't know if we're going to get into this later, but the one great thing that we kind of hang our hat on is our cornerstone program, which is our tag and release program, which provides a lot of data that we get from specifically from citizen science, that hot topic, through our constituents, right? And it is a very effective tool because thinking about if we were a scientist trying to find funding, boat time, the equipment, maybe it would be like 5 or 6, trips a year for a scientist to go do it. But when you have tens of thousands of individuals able to collect data, that's invaluable. And that's how we've kind of based the foundation on, and specifically that cornerstone program. Like TJ was saying, not all of it is based off of that. We do stock assessments as well, modeling as well with some of our consultants and our scientists. So just to kind of springboard off of the collection of hard data, but we also do quote unquote soft science as well, and looking at the socioeconomic impacts of sport fishing in areas and springboarding that data collection analysis to helping inform and educate those policy makers and letting them know, hey, if you were to open this up to, let's say longline fishing, this could inversely affect a number of people coming into the region, spending their hard-earned money, not only on the directly impacted as, so to speak, the charter outfits, but thinking about the lifts, the Ubers, the hotel chains, all these other indirect costs, and just letting them see that how this can possibly affect a region. And then TJ also hit on that last point as well. On that last pillar is educating those people, not only the policymakers, but then those people in the general public, just to let them know, hey, did you realize, something as simple as, did you realize that billfish are actually in popular culture? And 90% of people don't realize that it is, whether it's clothing brands that have it, or whether it's a famous author that has written multiple books about it, or a baseball team, right? So there's lots of different aspects of it being subtly in our culture, and it always makes me think, man, there's such a curiosity and love of this fish, but why is there not a lot more being done for the fish and for the community that loves the fish so much? And that's what we're here for.
Ah, nailed it. I love that. God, chicken skin on that last line, Peter. You touched on a couple things that I really want to dive into. The first
Sure.
one is you've mentioned our community a handful of times. Can you expand on who our community is?
Sure. It's so in a very short term, it's a short explanation. It's anyone who loves the water, right? Anyone that appreciates the water, especially, and its resources. Offshore anglers are some of the biggest stewards of our environment, period. End of story. It is fair to say that not only do we love the environment a lot, but we also want to see it succeed long term, because to be able to illustrate, I think one of the things that we always try to do in our community, whether it's the nonprofit community or the fishing community, is trying to pass that love of our passion to the next generation, to the next generation, to the next generation, right? We have this concept of, at least in the science world or the policy world, where we talk about shifting baselines, and where it's typically, when you're talking about shifting baselines, it's typically a negative thing. And we want to make sure, to the best of our ability, that those shifting baselines will either stay the same or actually improve for future generations, right? I know when oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, just expand just a little bit on what you mean by shifting baselines. Like,
Sure.
what would an example be?
Yeah, so an example is if you were to look at, and TJ could probably talk about this too, is, if you were to look at some of the old logbooks of whether commercial fishermen or just, you talk to your great grandfather or your great grandmother when they went fishing in the early 20th century, they would talk about, or you would read old books where they could say they could literally walk on fish.
Yeah.
And now you have a harder time getting them. When you think about it too, is we have more technology, better boats, and it's harder for us to see and to interact. Just to interact, not even catch, just to interact and see these beautiful specimens, right? To where we used to be able to, commonly see massive giants, and it's just not as common anymore. So we want to make sure that we can keep those fish out there, keep that experience and that passion to continue for generations to come.
Nice. Great answer. So you guys have a lot of different programs, one of which is the tag and release program, which I really want to get into. But let's get an overview of what you have. We have a membership, we have a newsletter, we've got a magazine for the little ones. Let's go with the details on what you guys have for our community as a resource.
Sure. I'll hit up a couple real quick, and then TJ can follow. But so the quickest way that people can help out is to become a member of TBF. Membership starts as little as $50 a year, which we used to say is like 14 cents a day, to help TBF and to help promote the cause. And it's as little as $25 for kids 17 and under. And that can give you a number of various benefits, from certificates for released fish to, depending on your level, really, really great swag, from new shirts every year to membership prints, to Yeti products, and free subscriptions to Marlin Magazine if they'd like as well. We really try to pump up the member benefits just to let people know how much we appreciate their membership to us. Hopefully it's just a matter of informing them. That's enough. But we also understand that, man, it's really cool to get a magazine once in a while and to have it in the salon to read, just to know what's happening. But we also try to keep them informed with our newsletter. So the newsletter is something that comes out on a regular basis, on a monthly basis, and we really try to handpick a number of stories that would be of interest to the community. Typically, it is something that is a couple events that are coming up that we want to help to promote, like tournaments that we're the beneficiary of, or if we have an event coming up like our gala or ceremony, as well as any important policy stuff that have come up as well. So we really try to keep our community as updated as possible. And obviously, if they have any questions on the newsletter, they can always reply to us. On the newsletter as well, we like to show off some of the merch that we have as well. So that's another really easy way to help contribute to the cause as well.
Okay, so a big part of the Billfish Foundation and the roles you guys play, and you mentioned this in the newsletter, is updating the community on the regulatory side of things. But it's so much more than that. Peter, I know that you're often going to panels and conferences on behalf of our community. Can you expand just a little bit on that and your projects there?
Yeah, so we look to represent the recreational community at a number of different venues, from the Highly Migratory Species Advisory Panel, which I've been a part of for a number of years now, up in DC, and then also at one of the RFMO, the Regional Fisheries Management Organizations, like ICAT. And the reason that we're on those panels or we're at those events is to make sure that our interests are heard and noted. I want to make sure that we want to make sure, that we aren't left behind and that we know the issues that are coming up, as well as addressing any possible instances where it could affect negatively or positively our our community. For example, we fought extremely hard for the Gulf of Mexico to get a bluefin tuna quota. We worked very hard on that, and luckily we did get a small quota. A quota, small one, but we did get one for the Gulf of Mexico.
Which is awesome. When was
Which is
that?
when was that? That was probably at this point 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. It might be a little bit longer. You can't don't quote me on that, but it's pretty recent. But then there are other things that we want to keep our, you know, we want to just be aware of, whether it's offshore wind development or, potential other policies that, like I said, could negatively or positively affect us. We just want to make sure that we're not missing out on something that could affect our community. And that's why
Yes.
we're a part of these panels. That's why we've been a part of these panels for decades. Someone from TBF has always been a part of these as much as we can. We're a small team, Katie. So when one person leaves the office, so to speak, it's kind of a drain on the rest of the team. Maybe not a drain, but it puts more onus and more pressure on the rest of the team. So we try to go to as many as possible, just to make sure that, like I said, we're heard.
I really wanted to emphasize what you guys do with the regulatory side, because I think that that's really
Sure.
big, because that's something that our community just doesn't
Well, nobody likes to hear
having
it, to be honest, Katie. Not a lot of people. It's just, I've been called a policy wonk more times than not, and that's not
that's so
typically an
sweet.
endearing. Yeah, it's not an endearing thing.
Thanks.
Yeah. So
Policy wonk.
yeah,
Get
so
you a hat.
most people want to know just the end game of that
Yeah.
versus, the nitty-gritty. But I do appreciate getting into, I mean, that stuff is super important. These policy meetings that we're going to affect our, just putting it this way, and you hit it really well, is our presence, we make it felt. So whether it's us not speaking on a subject or it is us speaking publicly on something, our presence means something there. And for a lot of people who think that it's worthless because NOAA or the federal government or these regional fisheries management organizations are just going to do what they want to do, if we're not there, it makes me even more worried, and it should make other people worried. So the fact that we're there, we're voicing concerns, and we are collaborating, or I'm not collaborating, but we're working with others within our industry, recreational, and maybe even some on, other sides too, to find a common goal that would seek to benefit our community is very, very important.
Yes.
Because it cannot just be TBF alone. Sometimes we have to have a coalition. I think that's probably a better word. And to make sure that those in charge know that we are watching and that our community, while we do like to be outside and don't like to participate in some of this stuff a lot of times, there is an organization like TBF and a representative that will take you to task. And trust me, Ellen and I will take you to task.
Yes.
And that's the big thing that I want people to understand when it comes to the advocacy side of things is, while it's a little boring and can be very frustrating, it's better to be there, provide that voice, than not be there and not know what could be down the pipe. I think that's more terrifying to me, is if you're not there and you don't provide a voice to the community that we're passionate about and that we love, then those people in charge are going to think everything's okay and they have no opinion at all. Which, as you know, being on a
Not the
boat,
case.
yes, that is not the case. We have lots of opinions.
Lots of
So,
opinions. We're loud
yes,
about them, just
yes,
not in the right places every time.
correct.
I think a big part of it is working the extremely big network you guys have. With this organization being active for so long in such a small, tight-knit community, you know just about everybody there is to know out there. So, for example, I mean, you've connected me with countless people. I can't thank you enough for that. But let's talk about some of your connections in the scientific community and how you've put together, whether it be being a part of tournaments or just making links between scientists and fishermen. Do you have any contribution to that?
Yeah, I mean, it goes without saying, it just circles right back to the beginning of the conversation, right? It is one of the main focuses of TBF, science, research, right? So what we like to do and what we have been doing since our establishment is incorporating that into almost every bit of what we do. And going to tournaments, while I know some of the general public, non-fishing folk, might not understand why that's important. Some of these tournaments are the only instances for scientists sometimes to actually get hard parts. And once again, I need to stress that they're not as easy to catch as a lot of people think. You talk to any angler, any captain, sure, they might have caught, and some of the lucky ones will catch hundreds, right, in a lifetime. But most people, as we talked about before, have never in person seen one. And that goes for scientists as well. So when scientists have an opportunity to see a harvested billfish and be able to take otoliths, be able to take fin clips, be able to take, gonads, to be able to look at a number of different things, that's incredibly valuable. I cannot understate that. Is it sad that we lost a fish? Yes, 100%. Totally. But when we can fully utilize the fish, like typically anglers and hunters do, I have no problem with that, especially when it's going to be utilized essentially 3, 4, 5 times over when it comes to science, right? Because typically, if you think about it, scientists will focus on one part of the fish, when another scientist will focus on another part of a fish, and another scientist will focus on another part of the fish. So it is extremely...
And the recreational anglers have no idea.
Correct. Yes, and that's true. I'll give you a great example. The fish that came in this past year in the Gulf of Mexico, that beast of a female. I think it was Chris Moad was the captain. I forget the angler's name, Justin Thompson, I believe. That amazing fish that came in. I apologize if I was incorrect with the angler's name, but that fish that came in, we were luckily able to get the fish head and get it to our scientists at the University of Southern Mississippi. We have a great relationship with them, and we just happened to go out tagging with them this last week. And the scientist that was there, he said, "Oh my God, Peter, thank you so much. If it was another couple days, who knows where it could be, or who knows where it would be, probably in the garbage somewhere," right?
Was that Jeremy?
Yeah.
So we've already had an episode with Jeremy earlier this year, and we got to talk about that a little bit. Yeah, it was super cool.
Yeah, we were laughing about it. I think we're all scrambling to figure out where's that fish? We need that head, and everything like that.
Myself included.
Right, exactly.
I was like,
exactly.
I hunted down Travis and I called him and he's like,
That's
"Well,
right.
I got some part of the head," and I'm like, "It's okay, just keep it. Please keep it."
No, Travis Dorlin was essential to getting that to GCRL, Gulf Coast Research Laboratory, in Ocean Springs. So,
which is so cool, you guys, because not only was this fish like a record massive marlin, but there was a community of people working. As soon as we heard about it, there's a whole community that's like, we need for this fish to also contribute to science. We need to understand how old this fish is, how long it's been in gestation, where it's been, what it's been eating, and all sorts of other data that these scientists can collect from it to understand the fishery as a whole better. And that's exactly what the Billfish Foundation is doing, is bringing us all together. And that's just so stinking cool. TJ, do you want to take us into a little bit about the Billfish Foundation tagging program and what it is, how long it's been going on, and why it's important?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So the tagging release program was initiated in 1990, if I'm not mistaken, Peter. So obviously, I think it was mentioned before, that is the cornerstone of everything that we do here. Without that data, And without the citizen science aspect, we really wouldn't be able to do nearly as much as we currently do as an organization. That is the baseline from which everything else that we have is built. And so the tag and release program, as a general overview, just allows people when they're angling, regardless, when the anglers are offshore, doing what they would normally do, catching the fish, sport fishing, all they're adding to that practice that they're already enjoying and loving and utilizing is just telling us what happens during that trip by just reporting that data and giving people an overview as opposed to having anecdotal information or how big this fish was. And anybody who is in the angling world knows, oh, the fish was huge. It was the biggest thing that we've ever seen, and there was thousands of them. And
A couple hundred
now we
pounds
can
bigger.
right. So yeah, instead of saying it was as tall as 7 men, no, now we know exactly how many meters or what the estimated weight was or where it was caught, and it kind of turns it into a fun aspect for the angling side, but also gives us the data that we need. So then you as a user out there can actually go back and say, oh, I caught this many fish and I tagged this many fish and they were this big and this person was with me and we were in this ocean and this year. And so it's a fun way to kind of look back, make it user friendly, but also give the data that's needed so that people can continue to enjoy the sport, like we had mentioned, for generations to go.
I think that's awesome. The fact that you guys have created like an incentivization program for citizen science is in itself very, very cool. And that the importance of citizen science and the data collected, I mean, there have been studies showing that mass majority of what we know of these billfish and these highly migratory species can be attributed to the citizen science programs that we have out there for recreational anglers. So let's break down a little bit about what tagging is and how the process works. Do you guys want to do that?
Yeah, Tita, do you want to get into that, or would you like to?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we can build off of each other.
Sure. Go ahead.
So the actual tagging, if you were to take it from the moment, from before you even head offshore, you need X amount of equipment. You actually need a tagging stick. If you want to go even more basic, you need the ability to go offshore and, have a plan and all that fun stuff.
Catch a fish.
I mean,
you do need to catch a fish to tag it.
You could just jump in the ocean with the tagging stick and see how you do. But I feel like it might not go over so well.
Not recommended at home.
Yeah, definitely.
Do not do this at home. So this tagging program has these spaghetti tags, right? So they're on the external side of the fish. It's just a quick boop into the fish, just right next to the fish's dorsal. It does not appear as though the fish feel it because it is very small and they are very large. Now, what type of information is on this tag? What does it look like? And what is then turned into the Billfish Foundation afterwards per tag?
Yeah. So you mentioned it perfectly. The tag itself is roughly, maybe 4 to 6 inches long, with a very thin diameter, much thinner than even your average size pen. So the actual resistance that you're going to get for the fish is minimum. It's going to be very low impact, and the applicator is designed to penetrate the skin in a very specific area that will cause minimum damage to the fish. We're tagging an area of the fish in the upper part of the dorsal beneath the actual dorsal fin, away from the head, away from the vital organs, so that it can stay in there safely into a part of the fish that will cause minimum damage. And hopefully, if all goes well, when another angler will be able to catch that same fish, we can then utilize the data that was caught on the original tag, and we can compare it to the data that was caught by the secondary tag, or what we call in the Billfish Foundation a recapture. And then from that, we have 2 stamps of where and when the fish was caught, size comparisons, migration patterns, general just distances. And the amount of data and research that you can get from just a small, those 2 original tag and the recapture is tremendous. And you can go in any number of directions that you want. And with that, we allow the researchers to kind of come in and say, we need this data. Well, here's the data. Do with it what you need. That would benefit obviously the community, the science, et cetera.
The good thing about that, just to build off what TJ was saying too, is yes, we get with the traditional spaghetti tags, we get a point A and point B, right? Just two locations. But what's interesting about the tag cards themselves is that we collect a number of different data from that instance, that tagging event, whether it's the recapture or the actual original tagging event. So, TJ, I believe it's nearly 40 different data fields that can be filled out. That sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. We encourage people to fill out as much as they would like outside of the 10 mandatory ones. And what I mean by that, Katie, is we have, I think maybe it's eight to 10 mandatory data fields, location, date, species, lat long, estimated weight and length, and so forth. But some of the other data fields that we like to collect are more on the socioeconomic side, which is, how big is a boat? Where are you from? To get some of the demographic information as well, which is sometimes really important for us to do social science.
Why is that important? Expand on that, please. Because I think, when we're looking at our tags, like as an angler, as a crew, when we're looking at the tags, we're like filling it out and we're like, why do I need to, tell you what my skin color is?
Well, it's really important for us, and this is part of the quote unquote soft science that we do as well, is we can look and help determine, okay, this number of people are coming from this area, and that zip code has X amount of people, right, in this sort of financial standing, or how many females are actually fishing. Here's a great example. We had one scientist like, Peter, we'd love to look at how many blue marlin had been caught in the month of January in a tournament in 1980 to 1990 to 1996 or something like that. I forget. It was that's not the exact thing, but it's something very similar to that. Because they wanted to look at how many females were actually being reported versus what weren't in that specific area, and specifically for tournament fishing.
Female marlin, not female.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification.
But I think the big thing that we've always seen is, and a lot of anglers will probably relate to this very well, is we rely on ourselves a lot. We rely on our ingenuity a lot. And we don't like to rely on anybody else, right? We want to make
stranded somewhere.
Right. And the big thing for us is, and I think we've seen this more and more over the past couple of years, now that we're one of the biggest funders for Billfish research, which is great and also sad at the same time.
Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
Pretty cool.
Is the fact that we have to be able to illustrate what this data and with this analysis to these policymakers. Again, so when we're collecting, that boat size or that boat name, or, are you a male or a female, how old you are, that stuff is really important, because when we're looking at, and more on the international side too, if you want to think about that, is there are a lot of people currently in the international world that don't believe recreational fishing is an actual thing. Meaning we'll talk to, Katie, you know about this because you were in the Canary Islands, I believe, or was it Cape Verde? I think Canaries, right?
Sorry, that hurts. We were supposed to go to Cape Verde. Every time it's mentioned, it's like, a little
sorry,
knife.
I'm sorry.
You're good. No, we lived in the Canaries for 3 years. We fished Canaries in Madeira.
That's what I thought. So I remember when Ellen was when she was the recreational commissioner for ICAT, the commissioners, the recreational...
Tell us who Ellen is.
Sorry, Ellen Peel is our El Jefa, is our big boss lady, or La Jefa,
She makes it happen.
Yeah, she does make it happen. She's been in this world, in this community for a long time, representing our interests. And if anybody knows TBF, they probably know Miss Ellen. She's been at the forefront of our interests for probably 35 years or so at the helm at TBF. And what's really interesting is that a lot of the European nations don't even think recreational fishing is a thing.
Or important at all.
Yeah, or important.
When I was in
And
Spain in the Canaries, they were actually trying to take recreational fishing away from the communities because they were saying that it's more important for the commercial fishermen to be harvesting the fish and that people can buy them from their seafood market to bring up the local economy. When
right, which is always interesting when you have that conversation with individuals. Do I believe commercial fishing has a spot? For sure.
definitely.
But recreational fishing, as we've proven time and again, especially when it comes to marlin, they're worth more alive than they are hung
On the
up
table.
by a commercial fisherman. And typically, commercial fishermen, especially in the United States, they're all bycatch anyway, right? So we always try to prove the point that, hey, did you realize that, TJ went to the Canary Islands to fish with Katie? Like, he's spending hard-earned money to fish in your in your area, and that's an actual thing. So that kind of information is really important outside of the really important biological information as well that we get.
I think that's awesome. Okay, recap real quick. So these spaghetti tags, you guys, they're 4 to 6 inches long. They're fluorescent in color, so if you catch a fish, you can see it has a tag on it pretty easily. They're small profile, so they don't interact too much with the fish at all, if at all, and they have a little barcode, a little code number that's associated with the data that's submitted to the Billfish Foundation, as well as a phone number to call if you catch the tag. So these guys, they're collecting from point A to point B data. What's some recapture data you guys have stories on? There's got to be some crazy recaptures out there.
Sure. I can mention one that I love talking about, or one or two. But just before I forget, there's also an email on there too. So on the tag. So if people don't want to call, because I know it's still sometimes hard to call collect or call internationally. It's easier to email people. So we have our email on there as well.
Awesome.
One other quick thing too is sometimes while they are fluorescent in color, fluorescent orange, if they have been on there for years, there could be some growth on there. And to make sure if there is growth on there, obviously make sure when you recapture the fish with the tag on it, cut the tag where the mono is to get the tag. Don't take the fish out of the water, please, because you don't want that fish flopping around just to get that tag. Just cut that mono off, and you can read that number to us. But going back to your question, one of the stories that I like of recapture, and I'm sure TJ has a couple of his own, but there was one. We talked about this before, Katie, about this Marlin Highway on the East Coast that stretches all along the East Coast of the U.S. that goes all the way down to Venezuela. And I've worked here for a long time. And there was this one, I want to say about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that now. But it went it was originally tagged in Montauk, New York, this white marlin. And it went all the way down to La Guera and was recaptured less than a year later. I think it was 100 or 150 days at large. And it made its way all the way down there. And the crazy thing about these things is that, one, they're beautiful creatures, but the sheer speed that they have, and then knowing that these fish are not just going from point A to point B, they're going like point A and going like wherever the eddies are and wherever their foods are, right, to point B. I thought that was a really cool one. And then another one that I really liked was we had a story of a blue marlin that was originally tagged off of North Carolina, and then it was recaptured. I'm gonna say the name of I think it's Ascension Island. That's what it is. It is Ascension Island.
That's sick.
And the guy's like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about this." I'm like, "How could you forget?" Reporting this. He said, "Oh yeah, I forgot to report this like 2 years ago, but here's all the information." He found like his logbook and the tag. I mean, not the tag, the original. The original tag, and he showed me. I'm like,
Okay, hold up. So you guys got the recapture data before you got the tag data.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was sick. So, and that's something that we talk about a lot. Is we try to make sure that those people that originally tag submit their data immediately. That's one problem that we do have that we really want to address, that we've been trying to address, TJ and I, is what we call orphan tags. Because if we don't have that original tagging information,
Yeah.
that really, while the recapture information is important, we have nothing to reference it earlier on. So we really want to make sure, if you and your captain and your crew are going out, to make sure that you report that immediately or as quickly as you can, so you don't forget it in the salon, or just forget it somewhere. It's just really important to get it in there for us.
And you guys have done a lot of changes with that recently. Like in recent years, you've updated, you've made it super easy to report online and all sorts of things. Whereas back in the day, you were mailing in these tags with not a lot of information on them. So that's actually, go ahead and tell us about that, how you can submit your tag data, and then we're going to get back to that recapture story on Ascension.
Sure.
Go
ahead,
yeah,
TJ.
I'll tell you. So the actual reporting process, like you said, was typically done by mail. So you would handwrite these cards, which can be somewhat tedious if you're a captain angler who, is catching dozens and hundreds per year. You're handwriting these on. We make it as easy as possible that you just have to drop it into a mailbox. But our goal, because we are trying to get the highest quality and the highest quantity of data, is to make the process as easy as possible on the anglers and captains themselves. So we have integrated and started to push a lot more toward the online aspect, because with the online aspect and having an actual portal where the anglers can enter the data in themselves, we're not trying to transcribe their handwriting,
Oh,
or
God.
you have less of a chance of error of entering the data incorrectly. You are able to enter the data at real time. You can go in and make sure that it's there. It's instantaneous. You can verify that your tags are there, because we have an annual competition that we do every year. That is another fun aspect to kind of get more people involved. So that if you're doing the mail, there's always a chance that it might be delayed, or something can happen, lost in general, because it's the tag card is maybe roughly the size of a
Postcard.
postcard. So anything can happen, and when you trust that, things can go wrong. And so we've been trying to push for the online to just make it easier for everyone. And then with that, we're trying to streamline the process to make it as efficient as we possibly can. Because if we can get it to the point where people are just entering the data and they can do it, in minutes, so you can give us the data and it's not a drag on your day, and it's fun, and you're getting to enter in this. That's what we want. We want it to be simple and easy and enjoyable, as opposed to something, I got to fill out those cards.
Chore,
No.
for
Yeah.
sure.
So we're always looking to improve, and we're always looking for recommendations too, because like the entire premise of the Billfish is based on citizen science. So for the people actually on the front line, if you have suggestions, recommendations, improvements, tell us. We are always open to anything that'll make it easier for the people that are kind enough to actually report the data to us.
Yeah. Expand a little bit on your incentive programs for the tagging program.
Incentive program, like the competition, or okay. So yeah, the competition, I think, is, as a competitive person myself, I love
As
the
a
idea
champion,
of
you
it.
mean? As
As
a
a
champion.
champion, yes.
As an ultimate Frisbee champion.
Ultimate Frisbee champion, as of yesterday. Look it up, it's real.
So the
So yeah,
competition.
so if you have we obviously are relying on citizen science, but there's nothing wrong with putting a carrot, so to speak, in front of somebody who wants to obviously tag for the good of the sport fishing community, and for environmental science, and for the longevity of the oceanic resources. But if you add a nice friendly competition there with your friends, there's nothing wrong with having a little fun while you're doing it. And I think
mean,
that
we all know that the recreational fishing industry is pretty competitive by
it's
nature.
No,
pretty
they're
good.
not. No, they're not.
We're all very complacent, and we definitely don't brag.
Yeah.
But so what is the competition? What are the awards? How do you win? How do you partake?
So we have the competition starts from November 1st to October 31st of the following year. And in that we have a number of categories, and it's broken down by ocean, by species. There's regional categories. Pretty much giving any angler who goes after whatever species of billfish are an opportunity to get involved. And so that no matter where you are on the planet, you can go out and 100% win one of the billfish categories. So it's really inclusive in that regard. So we really want to give people a chance to get involved and enjoy the competition. And then at the end of the year, as a thank you to everyone who had participated, we have a awards ceremony. I guess technically the beginning of the year, but the end of the competition year.
Yeah.
Um, we
October.
we announce all of the winners. We highlight all of their achievements. We really give them a thank you for doing what you did for the year, because it's no easy feat, obviously, like you said, to catch a billfish, to report the billfish. So this is our chance to really say thank you and have some fun and say you caught this many billfish and you won this category and you were an absolute rock star and insert
Yeah.
you,
And
and
you
you deserve to
contributed to
be.
science.
Yeah, you
Right.
should be excited.
And I think it's important to note too is that it's not just like 4 or 5 categories. I think it's
We
over 70 categories, I
just
believe.
under 80 categories this
Yeah.
year. Yeah.
So there's a lot from youth categories to female to we not only and
Spearfish.
right spearfish, swordfish. So the thing too is what we like to do since I think since our inception of having this award ceremony too is we not only highlight the captain and the angler, but we also recognize the very hardworking crew as well, because we all understand how hard the crew has to work to get everything rigged, to get the boat ready. And that's something that we hang our hat on as well, is to make sure that the crew gets recognized as well as those people that are also putting in. They're also the people that are putting the hard work. Excuse me, to catch those
Definitely.
fish.
I love that. It's the mate and the mates are often an undervalued component of the sport fishing industry,
For sure.
which
Absolutely.
is completely inaccurate in terms of the amount of work that's put in.
They're the
So,
backbone, 100%
yeah.
of
Yeah.
the sport fishing
The,
community.
Oh, okay.
the
I love that. Let's segue into your Lifetime Achievement Awards.
Yeah, so
Those are super cool.
we typically recognize at our gala, which will be held November 1st this year at the Harbor Beach Marriott, in conjunction with the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show. Plug in there, and we will be highlighting. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it yet because I don't think it's been formally announced,
don't
but
say it.
Don't say
I
it.
won't say it. But typically we
Well,
announce
this is
two.
airing in August, so
Oh, okay. Is it? Okay.
yeah.
So I'm trying to think. Why did I forget their names now? Well, one is, sorry, hold on, let me think about this. Anyway, let me talk about the Lifetime Achievement Award winners, and as I'm talking, maybe it'll
Yeah.
come to me.
And
So
you don't even have to go into who it is this year. You can just give like a little overview, and then we're
Sure.
going to segue into like kind of like future plans.
Sure. So we want to highlight, because we've been around for several years. We like to recognize those individuals or clubs that have been instrumental to the community as well. So every year we like to highlight a number of individuals or clubs that have been really at the forefront of conservation and have helped the community overall. And we try to pick these individuals that, like I said, have really made a difference. Whether it is someone within the industry, someone that's a scientist, or an outstanding club. Those are the type of people that we're looking at. Katie, I think you might have met one or two of our Lifetime Achievement Award winners. We like to think that they're well known within our community, as well respected within the community for their efforts.
Well, I think it's really cool that you just have recognition in diverse aspects of the community, and I know firsthand that brings other parts of the community closer together. And I think it's really cool just what you guys do in connecting the scientists to the anglers, to the mates, to the crews, to the owners of the vessels, and that fund these trips offshore. And I love that. And I think that the fact that your Lifetime Achievement Awards are so diverse in what aspect of the industry these people are key players in is really, really important. And I love that you bring that recognition to the table.
Yeah, I mean, we really try to diversify it. And this year, we're going to be recognizing Captain Chip Schaefer, who you know.
Oh, I love Chip.
So Chip will be receiving the
So
John Rybovich.
deserved.
He's
So
well
sorry.
deserved. No, it's okay. The John Rybovich Lifetime Achievement Award. Like I said, you know him, I believe. He's a great guy, great captain, very well known and respected within the community. And then Sam Peters, who is the president of Release Marine, will be receiving our
So
Winthrop P.
cool.
Rockefeller Lifetime Achievement Award winners. So we're looking forward to having them and their loved ones and come to our gala November 1st at the Harbor Beach Marriott.
Can anyone come to the gala?
Yeah, anyone can come. It's our lone fundraising event of the year. It means a lot for us for you to be there. We have a silent auction, a live auction. But really, and you've been there as an outsider, Katie, it's
so
really just a
cool.
fun time for people just to hang out, tell stories, and just to catch up. Yes, there's a little bit of fundraising involved, but it's maybe about an hour's worth of fundraising, and then you just get to dance the night away, which is really fun.
It's so much fun, you guys. Like the silent auction, what these people are bringing to the table are incredible things. It's the best, by far the best silent auction I have ever seen. It might just be because, well, anyone that's there is pretty interested in fishing, so it's like drool worthy. And then the food, the drinks, the vibe, it's all really, really high class and super awesome. So if you guys are at the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show and able to go to the gala, do check it out, do get tickets and
It'll be on our
go.
website. Yeah,
It's
it'll be on our
so
website. And just for those people that are a little wary of going to a fundraiser, it is not like your typical fundraiser. It is themed typically, and we like to dress up. And I don't mean dress up like penguins, but dress up whatever the theme is. So this year, I'm confident in saying that this year will be Western themed.
Oh,
So it
stop.
should be a lot of fun.
Let's go. Let's go. You guys, I'll go ahead and tag that information in the description below. If you're interested in showing up at the gala, please do. We'd love to see you there. I'm most likely going to be there, and it would be really, really cool to meet you. So, all right. Gala, that's awesome. I love it. We have the award ceremony every year. We have the Billfish Foundation Gala. We have membership services where you guys can be a part of the Billfish Foundation via membership, and you can get newsletters. You guys also have subscriptions. I mean, we talked about your Morrell magazine subscription, but also what about for the little ones? Let's talk about what you guys have for the little ones before we get into what our plans are for 2024.
Sure. So I can touch. So for the youth anglers, we put a lot of effort into trying to instill that passion, just because we believe it's so important for them to understand and care about it. But for you to care about something, you have to learn and experience. And so we have the magazine, Billfish Magazine, for adult anglers, but every year we put out two issues. I'm sorry, we have two magazines that we put out twice a year. One aimed for young adults, kind of middle school to high school range, and then one for younger kids, elementary school. And the idea is to kind of give them a little introduction into bill fishing, angling, and really in general, like a lot of other just marine science topics that we thought might just be fun for them to read about that they might not have known about before.
What are
So
those subscriptions called?
so the one for the elementary is Spearfish Magazine, and the one for the high school students is Sailfish. We wanted to make it nice and easy. The Spearfish is the smaller one, so the small kids. Sailfish a little bit bigger,
It's
and
cute.
then
It's a cute
yeah.
idea.
So yeah, we have a we work really hard to get the articles ready. We have a designer help us make it obviously visually appealing and fun. There's games, interactive, and we just give just a small teaser into some of these topics that kids would be interested in, and we offer it 100% for free, which is a huge thing. That we just, because we care so much about getting that information out to them. Any school, camp, kids, they can just reach out to us. by emailing, I think it's education@billfish.org. Say, hey, I have this class and I'd love to get the magazine. We will add you to the list and we will send it to your school. And you
All the
can
more
be,
reason for you guys to donate, y'all. This is too cool.
and
And
it's really fun.
I'll add that subscription information below as well. So if you're interested, if you know anyone with young teens or young children that would be interested in that, or you'd like to share the world of marine science to them, we'll add that in the description, because it really is. They're really cool magazines, and I think that's so important to be outreaching to the youth.
I'll be honest too, it helps me too. There's a lot of topics where I'm learning some. Oh, is that how that works? That's
Unabashed.
crazy.
You are
Stop it, DJ. Stop it.
champion.
There's a
Thank
Y
you.
in photosynthesis.
It's okay. It's okay. Photosynthesis. It's photosynthesis, you guys. All right. Peter,
Yes,
tell
ma'am.
me real quick. I want to hear this story of the recapture in Ascension.
Oh yeah, so it was like I said, it was just funny. We got this recapture, from Ascension first, and then like I said, it was one of those orphan tags, and we just kind of thought nothing of it because we haven't heard from years about this. I think it was a blue marlin, excuse me, and then years after the recapture happened, someone said, "Hey, I was just digging through our salon and I just happened to find this tag. I don't know if it's important, but here's the information." And we entered it in. I was like, "Oh my God, this is another."
It's the one.
It's like a transatlantic, and we get transatlantics once in a while, but it's not very often. And stuff like that is absolutely vital. Honestly, it's awesome, right? But getting that kind of information and to verify that information is so important for us as a community, as well as to show policymakers, okay, this is where they're going. Did you know there's recreational fishing happening in Ascension Island? Do you know, oh my God, how big was that fish? I didn't know they got that. All of these questions can be, I'm sorry, some of these questions that we have of these fish and of the community can be answered by some of the data that we collect.
Some of this most basic data, you guys, because we've had a podcast episode with Chloe Michaels, who is satellite tagging bluefin tuna in the Atlantic. And we know that those fish are crossing the ocean basin pretty easily, which is crazy.
Super easy. Yeah.
But blue marlin are not the same. They're
No.
so different. And again, we know quite a bit less about blue marlin because the bluefin tuna, I think, like we touched on in that podcast episode, wherever you go, if you're a bluefin, you've got a target on your back. They want you, but that value can be economically evaluated extremely easily. However, with blue marlin, where you're not all over the seafood markets in the world, throughout the world, it's a little bit different, and finding that funding is very difficult. So these tags, even just these very basic spaghetti tags, are showing us data that we wouldn't be able to collect otherwise. You mentioned, Peter, that having a fish go transatlantic is very rare. Can you expand a little bit on that?
I wish I could. There's just not that much information. We were teasing about it before about that Marlin Highway from north to south, but looking at our records, and it's been a little while since I've looked at how many transatlantics we've had, but we haven't had more than, I believe, a dozen to maybe 24 total. And to think about how long we've been tagging, over 30 years, and we have, TJ, it's nearly, what is it? I think 200,000 tag records in our system. And to
I
have
think
that,
it's right, like 220.
yeah, so it's pretty amazing. And I mean, the reason behind that is, we don't know. I guess that's the short answer. But I know, to kind of hop on a somewhat different subject though, is when someone recaptures these tags that are not recreational fishermen, there's a lot of confusion of what that tag is. And I remember hearing lots of different stories of, oh, I recaptured your tag, but I never reported it because I thought this was government property, or if I got it, I'd be in trouble. we've been trying to clear that stigma of please report it. You actually get a reward and yada, yada, yada. And it's actually super beneficial to you as well. But yeah, we don't get a lot of those transatlantic ones because of multiple reasons, whether it just doesn't happen very much or because the people that are harvesting them just don't report them to us. We try to make it as easy as possible, like we said earlier, but it still happens.
Yeah, that warmer water climates that you're going to see blue marlin in on the other side of the Atlantic is also off the coast of Western Africa. So you've got a pretty big disconnect between cultures and communities and from what our recreational fishing industry is doing over here versus what's happening over there. Now, you do have some outreach programs going internationally, though. Do you want to expand on any international tagging operations you have?
Yes, so I'll start a little bit and then TJ, if you want to kind of piggyback off what I say really quickly. So we are going to, I guess, rejuvenate or, reestablish our international grant that will help to provide tagging supplies and tagging equipment to areas that either have no data, have sparse data, or in areas where we feel that there is an immediate need to collect data. This past year, we were blessed with a little bit of funding to where we could give some to East Africa, and they came out like gangbusters, and they were amazing. They were so jazzed about it, and what actually ended up happening was that they actually won some awards too, which was fantastic. And I think I made note of it during the ceremony, like how proud I was of them. I don't think any of them showed up because it's a far flight from East Africa, but just to know like their first year back to provide data, and they really just hit the ball out of the park, kind of.
What country are we talking about? Like Kenya, Tanzania?
Yeah, so Kenya was definitely the spot.
Some good fishing up there.
Some great
Over
fishing.
there? Down there?
Absolutely.
Down there.
Yeah, over there is fine too. But some absolutely phenomenal fishing. We've known about the phenomenal fishing for many, many years now. But again, it's that instance where people just aren't reporting, and therefore that community is getting lost, and so is that fishery. And that was one of the things that we talked about during the ceremony in public was, hey, there's fishing happening there, right? Maybe go check it out. I remember the first time we had, sorry, getting a little bit off subject, but I remember just thinking we were highlighting two other locations. We highlighted Malaysia and Canada as two award winners as well. Malaysia and Japan. Excuse me.
I was like,
no, not Canada.
Me?
Malaysia. Sorry. Once I said that, I realized what happened. I was thinking bluefin for a second. Malaysia and Japan, and we had two individuals come from Japan to pick up their awards, and everyone's
How
like,
cool.
"There's no bill fishing in Japan." I'm like, listen, there's some phenomenal bill fishing.
And some big bill fishing studies going out of Japan.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff happening out there, and while we might not speak the same language in terms of English and Japanese over there, they do speak the language of fishing, their love of fishing, period. And they might love fishing more than anyone else that I've met, since essentially a lot of their diet is based off of that too, right?
And their industry.
Yeah, exactly. So, sorry, getting back to what you were saying is that, having this international aspect again to where, if an outfit says, hey, I'm in this area, do I qualify? They'll be able to take a look at our site and see how to qualify for that and just ask. And all we ask them to do is submit your data and provide some context of what you're doing with the tagging. It is the easiest way for an outfit in, let's say, the Maldives or something like that to get some tagging. We will pay for shipping. We will pay for the tagging equipment. We want that data. We feel it is incredibly important for our community to make sure that they're highlighted in all aspects, or all over the world, excuse me. So.
For sure. So like the general tagging program we touched on earlier, it's funded by the recreational fishing community. It's funded by our memberships are fees as well as paying out for each individual tag. Like we pay per tag and we go and we're part of the competition and we contribute to the fishery and the long-term conservation of a fishery that we all care so much about. But this is different because you guys actually got a grant to fund for these populations that might not be represented or are not represented on the global scale, fishing for highly migratory species to collect data in these remote areas. Drake and I went, and I don't know if you guys know this, but we spent our honeymoon hunting dogtooth tuna, spearfishing for dogtooth tuna in Tanzania. So
Whoa.
that it's a really cool fishery over there, and the fact that you guys had some people in the award ceremony from Kenya, I just think that's so awesome. And you guys, that's really special because we can't properly protect these populations of fish if we don't understand them. And also touching on what you guys dubbed the soft science aspect of it, but understanding the populations that are going fishing out there is also super important for the long-term sustainability of the fishery. And I think that's really cool. What other grant work? You have another big project in the works right now as well. You want to talk about that?
Go ahead, TJ.
Sure, sure. So this one was a really cool one for me personally. A colleague of mine at NOAA, we had worked together for a number of years in different departments, but under uh, the same, I guess, section of NOAA, so to speak. So coincidentally, we both ended up leaving NOAA relatively around the same time to go to different organizations, and a grant opportunity came up for a data collection aspect on the commercial side. And so obviously we at TBF focus primarily on data collection from the recreational side and people who, just go out to fish because they love it, enjoy it, while, this commercial data collection opportunity arose as essentially a way to streamline the collection process from their end through an app that they call Vessel. The company Bluefin Data is the spearhead for this, and in the really simplest way, they are trying to make the process easy for commercial fishermen to be able to report the data to all of the needed agencies in one location. So it would be simpler for them. The really cool aspect about this, though, is that in order to benefit TBF, is they're going to add on an option to say for all the commercial fisheries, you have to report said data to NOAA and you have to report your logbooks here. But if you would like to, you can add these additional fields that you want that would benefit the Billfish Foundation. So you can just add on these quick things and say, I caught this many billfish, and I this was the rough size, and these are some of the data fields will overlap already, so the reporting process is nice and easy. But they're already going to be reporting, and we're giving that conservation option to them. It's not a requirement. It's just if you care about the ocean and you kind of care about reporting and this conservation, here it is. And it would majorly benefit our organization, and it would pretty much cost you just seconds to add on these little data fields. And with that, we're hoping to just tremendously increase the quantity of data that we get overall, and really tap into a resource on the commercial side that we haven't had the opportunity to in the past. So it's very, very exciting. We're hoping to have that in the next couple of months, pretty much up and running.
That's so cool. I mean, the
Yeah,
commercial fishing industry, these people out there in the commercial fishing sector, they're spending their lives on the water.
exactly.
They are working hard. They're oftentimes of generations of people that have spent their lives on the water. Can you give us a little bit of an insight into the commercial fisheries sector of the U.S. and how big it is and what that looks like?
So exact numbers wise, probably not. I know in general that the commercial side I'll say as a generalization, for most fisheries is probably decreasing a bit just for trends and stocks for the fisheries as a whole. Um, I know that most people kind of look at the commercial and recreational as two different sectors, sometimes opposing in views, but they're really two sides of the same coin. Both industries are using it they care about it. They want it to continue. Obviously, the commercial side needs it for their livelihood and to survive. It's their job, and recreational wants to do it because they care about it. In fact, like there, a lot of the values overlap between the two. So for the commercial side, like, their focus, although obviously they're catching, they're trying to catch as much for profit, they still want to see the resources remain. And so I think as far as actual numbers and how big it is, it's a tough question just because there are so many fisheries, there's so many gear types, there's
Mm-hmm.
so many, you can really dive into a dozen just HMS highly migratory species fisheries, and then you could break it down into inshore, offshore, and then you can go into freshwater. It's tough to really quantify it, but just know that but both sides have the same long-term goal of just making sure that there are enough fish for people to continue to fish.
Just to kind of add on to what TJ was saying too is, when this piece of software, I guess, or application goes live with that aspect of that opt-in, we're going to be maybe even before this, hopefully before this actually goes live, we'll have a couple workshops as well, to where we'll be talking with a number of potential. We'll be talking to a number of fishing clubs to where we believe there are dual permit holders, right? As you know, there are probably a number of people that have dual permits as commercial and recreational.
Exactly.
So we want to reach out to them, get their feedback, talk to them about this, as well as we're gonna, what TJ was saying before, dangle a little carrot in front of them too, is provide them with some free tagging equipment. Because if they do encounter, let's say, if you're a commercial sword fisherman and you encounter, undersized rats or undersized swordfish or rats, that will give them the opportunity to then tag those fish for TBF. Or the other aspect is, they happen to maybe recapture one of the fish that have been tagged. They can report that to us more easily now. This partnership that we have with Bluefin Data, I think, is going to really streamline how the data can be reported, that they already have to report anyway, but then that they can add and streamline directly into our system without even logging into our system at all. So our hope is high that we'll be able to get some really great data from that sector.
That's so cool. So if any of the listeners on this podcast are either commercial fishermen or recreational fishermen that participate in the commercial industry, or dubbed as both commercial and rec fishermen, and they want to help in some way expedite this process for you guys, is there something like an email they can send out, or is there some way they can help contribute to this to help make it a little seamless?
So I think the first thing, I think by the time this comes out, it will hopefully be running at that point. I think what we can provide your listeners is the URL to where to do it. But correct me if I'm wrong, TJ. I think a lot of the commercial guys will already have the ways to report their landings data or their data, and basically they don't have to do much else outside of just opting in. There will be a little, I think, toggle box. We haven't verified what it's going to be yet, but there's going to be a little opt-in to say, I would love to submit this billfish or swordfish data to TBF. It's as simple as that. Most states on the East Coast and the Gulf, or not most, but several states are already using this to report their landings data. So it should be fairly seamless for a lot of them. And I think, like I said, I can't stress that enough. We want to keep it as simple as possible.
I think that's so cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, TJ, go on.
I would say this one was just it was really cool just because the benefits, it was mutually beneficial for all parties involved. The vessel, the application from Bluefin Data is something that is going to be a really cool streamlining process for the commercial fisheries. But then the option to have that conservation aspect for TBF, it was just a worlds colliding type moment that was just, yes, absolutely, we'd love to do this. What a cool feature. What a new field that we can get into, more data. That it's the potential here is huge, and we'd love to obviously continue with this to see, future opportunities and how it can expand. Because like I said, the goal is always collecting good data that we can then use. And now, this coming in really opens a lot of doors for us to just start boosting those numbers so that if we ever need to really make some good regulatory changes or push for certain aspects, we will just have that much more ammo to kind of fight for those changes.
And the
Yes.
other aspect too is, again, tying it back to the very initial conversation of the podcast, is getting closer to the community. Like, we are at so many events a year. I think, TJ, we're going to 30, 30, whether it's tournaments to conferences to, panel meetings and so forth and so on. This gives us a further opportunity to meet everyone, like on the dock, in the clubhouse, just to hear and to see them, to talk to them, and to provide them with, more insight. And I think, as your listeners will hopefully find out over the next, couple months and couple years, is that we're going to make a very considered effort to be out there more. Even though we're a very small team, we understand that if we're not on the water or on the docks talking with you, we can't understand what the problems are. It's just as important to go on the docks and on the water as it is for us to go to these panel meetings. So we can't represent you guys without understanding what your concerns are. So
That's awesome. Okay, super cool. Well, I think I'm going to have to wrap it up there, you guys. We've been going on for a little bit over time. Is there anything, before I do that, is there anything that you want to add that you wanted to talk about today? We still have a little bit.
Did we mention the gala on November 1st at Harbor Beach Marriott in Fort Lauderdale?
I think that we definitely needed that third plug. I love it. Okay, yeah, that's right, you guys. So you can either, sign up for the Billfish Foundation newsletter. It's free, description below. Also, the youth and children magazines are free, all ages. Sign up for that if you have anyone that's interested, or even see if your local elementary and middle high schools would want that. I think it's a great way to have outreach for the youth in our communities. And if you want to give a little bit more, become a member of the Billfish Foundation. There are options as low as $50 a year. Like Peter said, that's 14 cents a day. Or you can go all the way up to a lifetime membership and really show your support for this community. There's also the fundraising event on November 1st at the Fort Lauderdale International
done,
Boat
Katie.
Show. Thank you. And the tagging program that is such a big part of our community and a great way to collect data, because as the Billfish Foundation likes to say, the more data we have leads to better management. Better data leads to better management. I almost did it right, but that's fine. Peter's nodding, and I'm going to do that. So you guys, thank you so much for checking in today with the Billfish Foundation. It was a total pleasure to have you guys on board.
Can I add one last thing, Katie?
Yes, of course.
I'm
That's why I
sorry.
paused.
So one last thing I wanted to mention was there's been some misconception of, do you have to be a member to participate in the tagging program? No, you do not. No, you do not. You do not have to be a member. We'd love for anyone and everyone to participate in the program. Would we love for you to join? Of course we would. But just having more data collection and more people out on the water tagging and reporting to us is more important. So other ways to help TBF outside of membership or just participating in the tagging program or spreading the gospel of TBF is if you have a business and you want to help sponsor one of these events, or if you can't sponsor monetarily, we'd love to help promote your business. If you want to do some in-kind donations as well. Again, we are a nonprofit. We do the best that we can with the help that we get. So the more that you can help to support us, the more that we can do. So we really appreciate that.
You don't even need tags to not only is it free, you don't even need tags. You could actually just go
TJ.
out with just fishing and report the release, because the release is equally valuable for us to have. So if you happen to go out on a trip and you realize you don't have any of the equipment,
that's okay. You write it down, bring it back when you get to a computer, your phone. You can enter it right in there, the release information, submit it for free, and it will take you a minute. And then that is incredibly valuable for us here at TBF.
If you have catch data from last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago that you've never reported, you can still report it. Just like that one boat did 3 years after the recapture of that blue marlin. Please submit it to us because you never know where that fish could have actually gone. Please do submit that tag and or just release data to us.
And that's a wrap. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Please look at the links in the description below for so many cool things that the Billfish Foundation offers. As always, don't stop chasing your wild, and we'll be seeing you out there.